So my name is Omar Rabasad. It is 12:31 p.m., April 12th, 2020. And I live at 25 Bamberg Circle in Toronto, and I am a target. I am being harassed. Um, I'm being driven out basically by verbal, physical harassment and being bombarded with microwave signals as well, causing a lot of pain and affecting your nervous system basically. So the residents, some of the residents in the building are flagging me with the Toronto police and getting contracts that subcontractors could work to surveil me on behalf of the person with the contract. So any number of levels of contractors. So you'd have contractor, subcontractor, 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 subcontractors. So just about anyone can monitor you. So this actually happened 2009, and somebody called the cops about my having a camera in my hand and showing up in the same place more than once. The place happened to be a subway or a bus station. It was not clear to me which one. It was not made clear to me by the cops. So I was working at the time. So of course I was using the TDC. So the police showed up because I had a camera in my hand, and it ended up diagnosing me with 2 mental illnesses. So subcontractors, subcontractors make these calls, and because I'm a target, it's all fixed. And fixing it means fixing it with the cops. Once the cops flag you and outsource the monitoring, the program is a set program. It's a set template. So the cops expect these calls, which is used to set you up and harass you. The cops harass you as well. So you don't have a voice. Your voice is suppressed because once you're flagged, it's fixed, meaning that your voice is suppressed. Just like these signals being bombarded with these signals inside of my home, and as I sleep between my legs, being remotely raped essentially, my voice is suppressed. Anything I say will be ignored because it's all fixed with the Toronto police, who is serving and protecting the obelisk, very clearly marked, and a statue, an obelisk statue. Did I say that right? It's an obelisk in the middle of downtown near the police station. I guess a statue would be of a person. But this is an obelisk. And on the obelisk, it's written "Serve and Protect," which was the motto of the police force. And this is one of 3 works of art, quote unquote, that is linked together. So the cops are serving and protecting the obelisk. The obelisk is a symbol for the elite. The elite is part of the New World Order, which is based on a satanic agenda. And gang stalking and being targeted this way is also based on a satanic agenda. So this is part of the New World Order agenda. There is absolutely no doubt about it. It's clear. Everybody's talking about it openly now. The COVID-19 scam, where millions and millions of people around the world are starting to understand that the COVID-19 crisis is a scam, and it's part of a conspiracy to have us chipped and tracked, just like in China, and to live our lives in a communistic world, just like in China, have our rights taken away. But there are 8 billion people in the world, so obviously we've been doing something right. The human race have been surviving since creation. Why do we need to be chipped and tracked by a Chinese-based organization, theory of organization, communistic, a communistic management system of people and society. Definitely, it's not about survivability, it is about control and power and taking over people as in a satanic agenda. Complete possession and complete ownership, enslavement. So, what is being done at 25 Bamberg Circle is a program of enslavement under the cover of flagging, based on lies, based on suspicions, which is a communistic approach to keeping the community safe. Well, it's not about keeping the community safe, it's about enslavement. This is about enslavement. The real agenda is enslavement. It's not about safety, it's about enslavement. And this is exactly what the COVID 19 fake crisis is all about. It's not about health, it's not about keeping us healthy, it's about enslavement. Control, tracking, chipping, and enslavement, taking away your rights. Now, Justin Trudeau, our prime minister, is is he's a sympathizer. He's a communist sympathizer, and it's all over the news, mainstream media. Um, this communistic approach to management and to national management of our country showed its ugly head, reared its ugly head in his attempt to grab the power, essentially, to tax Canadians without going through the parliamentary process of debating the issue first. He wanted a unilateral agreement put in place where he could unilaterally tax people as he wishes. So, on the one hand, he's putting in place, his government is putting in place the emergency assistance program, ability without debating, which is undermining the democratic system, his ability to, his personal ability to tax people, which means that we're going to give it to you and we're going to tax it right back. So I would say that, definitely I will not be ever voting for him again, ever voting for him again. Um, he lies, basically, he lies. He bamboozles. Now, of course, there are other politicians who do the same. Lots of politicians lie, lot of politicians backtrack, um, and they also bamboozle. But in this case, this prime minister is undermining our democratic system, which is totally not acceptable. Totally not acceptable. In a democratic society, we're supposed to have a voice to speak out. We're supposed to debate issues. He was trying to shut that process down by making it a one-sided process. So I'm going to read this article, which is taking its time to pop up on my screen. it's not going all the way up. My screen is taking its time loading. My Wi-Fi is hot. So this is at the calgaryherald.com website. And it's the calgaryherald.com/news/local news/Corbella Trudeau attempted power. That's Corbella-Trudeau attempted power grab, an alarming breach of trust. That's the link. So it says every opposition party had made it clear to the ruling Liberal government that they would fully cooperate and quickly pass Bill C-13 in 1A. The Conservatives, the NDP, and the Bloc showed good faith in the government, but the government did not return that good faith. When the opposition parties saw a copy of the draft of the COVID-19 bill, there was a clause in it that would have granted the finance minister the right to spend money, tax Canadians, and purchase or hold a company's shares without the approval of Parliament until December 31st, 2021, or until the first day of 2022, a span of 21 months. So purchase or hold a company's shares of companies whose share price plummeted because of the crisis. So I'll give you an example. The oil shares some of the shares went from 40 to 3 because of the coronavirus and other issues, the other pricing issues. But does it give if this had passed, the government could buy up these companies at $3 a piece of the share and pretty much have a majority rule over the company. So it's a consolidation of power in the government, and that is this is communism. If the economy is brought down and people can't work for themselves and have the independence, have financial independence and independence of movement, and doing business as a free world, democratic country, then this undermines the whole system, our democratic system. This puts in place a communistic system. So it is actually a conspiracy. The COVID-19 crisis, whether the virus exists or not, and there's a question as to whether it does or doesn't, the crisis itself is being used to undermine our democratic system and put in place a communistic system, one of tracking and control. And you can't, and limit freedom of movement. I mean, if you have to self-isolate 14 days when you come into a country or when you get into a country, if you go on holidays, most holiday packages are for 2 weeks. So are you going to self-isolate for the 2 weeks? If you go to Cuba or if you go to Jamaica or you go to Hawaii on a 2-week holiday, do you get to stay inside for the 2 weeks? Is this a permanent situation? Businessmen who go on trips, for a day or 2 days a week, are they going to self-isolate for the 2 days and 5 days they're there, whatever location they're in? When they come back, they also have to self-isolate for two weeks. So you can't do business. Shut all the business down. So how are the people going to make a living? Now, we didn't build our country on a communistic pillars of communistic principles. The pillars of our society were democratic ones. Nobody has the right to undermine it and ride the coronavirus crisis as a Trojan horse and put in a communistic approach, a communistic system into place. This is a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy. On my head, every time the pulse goes up to about 35, 40, it's a huge hit on the back of the head as I'm talking. This is what I mean by communistic approach. Covert means, directed energy weapons, 5G, microwave technology is being used to shut people up. This is how China does business. I would suspect that China has been microwaving its people for hundreds of years, as long as this technology has been known. So right now, the person up directly above me at 25 Bamberg Circle in Toronto is knocking in sync with the hits on the back of my head and the pulses that's reflecting in this microwave detector in the RF reading right there. Every pulse up and down is a hit on my head and somewhere on my body. That 40 is a hit on the neck, the back of the neck, the base of the head. So I read somewhere that people are falling over with concussion type pain in the head. And when they go to the hospital, they are being diagnosed with lack of oxygen. Well, if you're hit at a high power with a microwave type technology, microwaves decreases the ability of the red blood cells to carry oxygen. So, and it could be immediate. It can cut off some of the technologies being used here by PK, the Chinese trafficker, working with the so-called government that he's working with. He says that these technologies cut off blood supplies to certain parts of the body, the legs, to make you fall over. If you're sitting and cut the blood supply to the legs, so the leg goes numb, you get up, you fall over. The back of the head cuts off the supply to the brain. Put pressure on the back of the head, your brain doesn't get oxygen. Hit your chest, your heart doesn't get oxygen. Hit your lungs, your lungs doesn't get blood supply. So all of these symptoms can be made to happen with microwave technology, which I am demonstrating right now. Now we know that China wants to rule the world. You know, the Chinese leader is coming out in the open and saying so. The world should be listening to China. What China did is a good example of the way they handled the crisis. Well, China actually made the crisis in the first place, and they went through a process, a set process that they had. This was thought of before it happened. This is how the Chinese operate, as they're doing at 25 Bamberg Circle with PK. It's an agenda. Right now at 25 Bamberg Circle, what happens is PK and other people in the building have meetings about me. They have me under glass. They run experiments on me. They do feedback. They take data. They update the template, and they start new experiments all over again. And another aspect of that is they transfer me around to different people who have different templates and different experiments that they like to run. So they are training people to run experiments on other people and enslave other people. So this is what I'm being used for right here. It's a step-by-step process that PK, with the people in the government that he's working for, that he claims that he's working for, is running right here at 25 Bamberg Circle. Now, if they're running it at 25 Bamberg Circle and in the Scarborough area and in Toronto, why would they not run it in the world, given 5G, given that we have satellites, hundreds of satellites, tens of thousands of satellites orbiting the Earth? Why would it not be run around the world, especially since 5G, which is using millimeter wave technology, which these technologies in 25 Bamberg Circle is also using, because it penetrates metal and it penetrates the walls. Why would it not be run around the world? China is into world dominance. Of course, they're going to run it in the world. This is the things that's not being talked about. We are being bamboozled. We are being bamboozled. And the Chinese way of winning domination is it's predatory. They lie, they cheat, they bamboozle, they infiltrate, they do everything, anything possible. No, there's no rules and there's no laws that applies to these people, these criminal people. Again, the Chinese are doing it to their own people. The criminals in China are doing it to their own people. So not all Chinese are in agreement with what's going on because they're being victimized like everybody else by the few at the top in their own country. So when I say the Chinese, I'm talking about the group of the Chinese people in China who are infiltrating other Chinese people to to enslave their own people on levels. So the bureaucrats in China and the police who are being rewarded because they're on a different level than the normal people to beat up on the people, to enslave them, to violate them constantly because they're being rewarded, just like in a democratic world, just how we see now so-called well, they're trying to change our democratic world. But let's say right now we are in a democratic world for now. Um, I have my doubts about that because I think it's been undermined. So right now we see the police, our own police, doing the same thing, beating up on the people, following the orders of the people above who's been infiltrated, our politicians who's been infiltrated. Police violence and police brutality and police violations are going to only increase from now on. When the two cops came to my home because somebody called about a camera, and the cops knew that I was flagged and they knew that they were outsourcing the monitoring, that they were expecting these calls, and they knew people were going to call about me, and they came to my house and harassed me and violated my home and harassed me inside of my home. That is only the start of what's going to happen to all Canadians. That's meant to happen to all Canadians, and the violations are only going to be deeper and more frequent. When I did call about my being harassed by one of their informants, one of their subcontractors, they charged me and almost killed me and tortured me. I was held. One of the things that happened to me in a space of under 24 hours, I was held in a hot metallic van, completely enclosed, and I'm claustrophobic. My hand was cuffed behind my back. I had a coat on. The heat was turned on. The heat was was blowing directly into my face. When I asked for the heat to be turned off, I called for the two drivers in front. They answered when I asked them to turn off the heat. They never did, and they ignored me. They completely ignored me, and I passed out. And when I got out, my whole body was swollen, and my entire body was swollen, and I think very much so that I had a heart attack at the end of that, which was never diagnosed because I'm a target and it's all fixed with the Toronto police and whoever it is that they're working for at the top, the obelisk. It's time people wake up and start realizing what's going on. COVID-19 could be real. The Chinese made it. Who knows if it's real or not? If they could rape Omar Rampersad continuously and pass Omar Rampersad around to rich Chinese men in Scarborough since 2005 that I was aware of, then of course they could do this globally to everybody and anybody they want because it's all fixed by the New World Order. People who are telling the governments what to do, like Bill Gates. All fixed. It's fixed for the entire world. So my breast is being hit, and that's I heard the Indians have it. So, and no matter what I say, it's going to go on as this is supposed to be because it's all fixed. It's all fixed. So there's going to come a time when people are going to start to realize that it really is about defending yourself. There you go. That's a reset right there. It went up to 38. That's actually a hit on my chest and on my back. Sorry, I got distracted. Yes. So there's a tweet here that says on the global news, with regard to COVID-19, there has been a failure of early warning, and we are reaping the consequences of that, one security and intelligence expert said. So I'm going to read this article. I just got this link from my Twitter feed, globalnews.ca. Coronavirus, Canada missed opportunity for early warning, security experts say. It was last Liberal government issued a national security policy in 2004. With the then recent SARS outbreak in mind, the government said it would integrate its approach to public health emergencies with its national security agenda, when including when drafting threat assessment. The promise was, despite the idea that were going to do this with the national security policy, it just never happened. Rather, Canada was left to rely on open source information, including assumptions about timely and accurate reporting from countries like China that stood to suffer from the outbreak, he said in an interview. With regard to COVID-19, there has been a failure of early warning, and we are reaping the consequences of that. Did it really matter? All one had to do was turn on the news to see the empty streets of Wuhan and the escalating casualty figures. Walk argues careful analysis of intelligence, including satellite imagery from allies, could have revealed signs such as China's military movements, the sudden setup of medical facilities and activities around funeral homes, a picture of the crisis that clearly the Chinese authorities in the early days were not anxious to publicize. A determination in mid January about COVID 19 could hit Canada hard would have given the country a head start, allowing it to enact a strict travel ban, issue an advisory to stay home during March break, replenish the national emergency stockpile, and begin buying personal protective equipment for health workers. So again, this is me talking, not reading. The activity in China, setting up funeral facilities, you would think that this would have flagged it as a possible experiment, right? So let me just read that again. Walk argues careful analysis of intelligence, including satellite imagery from allies, could have revealed signs such as China's military movement, the sudden setup of medical facilities and activities around funeral homes. Picture of crisis that clearly the Chinese authorities in the early days were not anxious to publicize. So we have satellites orbiting all over the world. Did we not know this was going to happen? Did we not know that it's possible that China was running an experiment? Because what I just read is a really good possible sign of experimentation. They're doing things in anticipation of what's going to happen because they knew already what was going to happen. It was planned. So is it possible that it was meant for the world economy to collapse, and then a certain group of people will move in and rescue the world with China at the top? It really doesn't matter which country is at the top. The idea is to enslave the entire world. I would think that there's a committee at the top that's made up of people from different countries. Just like there's a committee at 25 Bamberg Circle discussing Omar Rampersad that includes my family, by the way. There were community meetings about Omar Rampersad. There are meetings at 25 Bamberg Circle about Omar Rampersad. I would think that there's, in much the same way, there are global meetings of people about 12 or 13, in a group of 13, 12, who are deciding what they're going to do with the world after they bring it down to its knees and kill off, sacrifice, hundreds of thousands of people. And then we're going to be rescued by this group of people who's going to decide what's good for us on a global basis after they chip and track us to control us. This is what's going to happen. And China wants a huge part of that control. They want to be a major decision maker in that group of 12 or 13. This is where it's headed because the template is at 25 Bamberg Circle with PK as its head. We have committees deciding how people are going to live, who's going to be a slave, how much meat they're going to eat, when they're going to sleep. We're going to be trained. We're going to go to bed at 9 and get up at 6. You're going to open your legs for the elite at 3 o'clock in the morning. At 6 o'clock, there's going to be another team who's going to log on to you. And if you don't, we're going to take out your eyes and we're going to take out your liver and we're going to take out your heart. This is a Chinese agenda. And he's working with, quote unquote, the government, meaning that he's infiltrated the Canadian government. Justin Trudeau's idea about his communistic approach and the fact that he's a communist sympathizer and he has admiration for Castro and the way China is being run doesn't impress me, to say the least. Does not impress me at all. We voted in a democratic, we live in a democratic country. We voted in, using a democratic process, a leader who was supposed to uphold the democratic process. not undermine it. As the article said, he's a traitor. He should not be prime minister. There should be a vote of confidence, non-confidence against him in parliament because of that. So let me read from Wikipedia what a motion of non-confidence is. So, a motion of non-confidence or a vote of non-confidence or a non-confidence motion is a statement of vote about whether a person in position of responsibility, government, managerial, etc., is no longer deemed fit to hold that position, perhaps because they're inadequate in some aspect, are failing to carry out obligations, or are making decisions that other members feel detrimental. As a parliamentary motion, it demonstrates to the head of state that the elected parliament no longer has the confidence in one or more members of the appointed government. In such countries, if a no confidence vote is passed against an individual minister, they have to resign along with the entire council of ministers. Well, Justin Trudeau, um, taking a communistic approach to the handling of the crisis, and his and being a communist sympathizer, which is coming through in the way he's handling this crisis, and his power grab, using the crisis to grab power so he can make decisions on his own without debate in parliament. He's exposed by doing that. He's exposed that he is not a believer in our democratic society. He's not a believer in our democratic system, in our parliamentary system. He's demonstrated that. Therefore, there should be a vote of non-confidence. He's undermining the democratic system. He should be ousted out of power. He should be gone. No more prime minister. Plus, he's holding a minority government. The whole of the oil patch in Canada, the provinces that make their living out of oil locked him out, basically. A lot of people probably was aware of his weaknesses. We should be using our democratic process to replace the leaders that is not carrying out the agenda that we voted in, and place one in there who is. Jagmeet Singh has impressed me. I did vote for him this election. I voted Liberal the last election. I voted NDP this election because Justin Trudeau did not impress me at all. I always voted Liberal. Since I came to Canada, I voted Liberal. But this last election, Justin Trudeau did not impress me at all. So I'm gonna put my hand down there. See how much electricity my hand have? I've been bombarded constantly, constantly. Take the hand away, put the hand back on. Maximum power. The head, the ear, the back of the neck, the back, the hips, the hands. This is how a communist country operates right here. I'm demonstrating what a communist country does. So are we living in a democratic society? I am demonstrating with these signals that we are living in a communist country and we are slaves. COVID-19 crisis, the handling of the COVID-19 crisis is demonstrating that there is a group of people who are actively putting a global enslavement program in place, a communistic program in place globally. And that's a hit behind the ear and the neck. And there's another side of this that needs to be discussed. These signals that I'm demonstrating can actually put thoughts in your head. One of the technologies that could be used, and it's being used here by the Chinese traffickers to train their victims in order to make them show and make them do what their clients want them to do. In other words, customize them remotely. They can actually change your mindset. They can actually put thoughts in your head. They can actually traumatize you with pain to disassociate you in order to make you more vulnerable to the ideas being projected into your head. Because once you're disassociated, then you go on automatic. You're no longer connected to your inner voice, and that's the whole idea. Because things get so painful that you can't face it at that particular time. You will eventually, but at that particular time, you become disassociated because you're traumatized, and then ideas, fake ideas, artificial ideas, outside ideas, external ideas, I should say, are projected into your brain, and you may act on it because then you're disassociated from your inner voice, your conscience, your deeper being. This is what disassociation is all about. Just as a side, meditation destroys all of that. Once you start meditating or listening to very soothing music, classical music, um, anything that puts you in a meditative state and allows you to connect to your deeper voice will eliminate all of these effects. But the idea of traumatizing you is really key to this whole program. And right now, I know I'm being completely traumatized, completely and utterly traumatized. There are times that I don't go outside for 2, 3 days normally, but that's different because you'd always know in the back of your mind of other people out there as well as myself. I would know, I should say, I would know in the back of my mind that I could always get out and walk, go to the park. The option is there, which makes the difference. So the idea that you cannot go out more than once a week to do groceries and go to the doctor is torture. It's absolutely torture. And it's traumatic, completely traumatic, especially since it's not based on facts. It is not based on facts. If you go out, you're going to spread a disease. Well, everybody already have the disease. Everybody already is already carrying the disease around. The coronavirus is a wide range of viruses that everybody already have in our system. So the old people and people with compromised immune system are susceptible. Well, then they're the ones who should be wearing masks, and they're the ones who should be wearing protective gear to go outside. They're the ones who should be limiting their activities. And older people limit their activities anyway. Older people do not go outside. People who live in old age homes, their activities are limited anyways. So if we go out, young people, healthy people go out and we spread, quote unquote, the virus around, maybe some of us will get a cold, a bad cold, that we now know should be taken care of before it turns into something really detrimental. So if you take care of a cold, and what do you do when you're sick? You stay home, you rest, you drink lots of liquids, you take your vitamin C's. That's the common cold. Why is it any different why is COVID-19 any different from the common cold? When you get sick, you self isolate anyways. A week. When I get a cold, I'm out for a week, 10 days. And the last time I self isolated and I stayed home, I got fired, by the way. So that policy needs to be changed in the workplace as well. The numbers are showing that most people, like the common cold, just have flu-like symptoms. And people who have compromised immune systems die sometimes and sometimes get really sick and recover. But that's what the common cold does. So what is making the huge difference here? Well, 5G and the use of directed energy weapons would be some of the factors. And if it is an experiment being carried out by the Chinese and other groups as well, and if the Chinese are doing it, they infiltrate other groups and they use other groups as well, other ethnic backgrounds, other countries, then, sprays, deliberately spreading the virus around, and then using directed energy weapons and some of the people to kill them off to increase the number. Is that one option? Is that one possibility? Is that a possibility? Because I know I was sprayed with something in the subway by a Chinese person. The person was following me very, very closely. Like I could feel the breath on my face, the back of my neck, and I felt a mist over me. And in 3 days, I was sick. I had strep. I lost my voice. And Omar Rampersad is a target, and Omar Rampersad is experimented on by PK, and the Chinese have the contract. So, is it possible that scene is played out with COVID-19 to increase the numbers and kill off people when really murder people? This is murder. So let me give you an example of a possible murder under this experiment that's being carried out in the building. I had a cousin who started visiting me recently, and she died suddenly. I didn't have a clue how she died. Then I went to the funeral, and I learned that she suddenly got really, really sick. Suddenly, she was lethargic, completely had this feeling of getting completely tired, couldn't do anything. She went to the doctor. The doctor said she had anemia. Of course, we know what targets the doctors cover for the experiment. And she was taken to the hospital. Somebody visited her, and she was completely, she couldn't get up. She was limp. She was taken to the emergency. And in the emergency, she started screaming that she wanted to urinate. And she kept on saying she wanted to urinate, she wanted to urinate, she wanted to urinate, screaming in pain. Now, I have tweeted several times that the bladder area, when these pulses happen, as you're looking at the pulses as I speak, the bladder area is pulsed with some of these technologies, reflecting in these signals. My hip, my lower belly, genital area are constantly being pulsed, especially when I sleep. And sometimes I get up in excruciating pain, and I made videos of that as well. And everybody knows on a global basis that Omar Rampersad is being experimented on by the Chinese. And it's not been disclosed to me because it can't be, because it's an experiment. Everybody knows what I'm saying is true. So the cousin went to the, I learned afterwards at the funeral that she went, while she was in the emergency, she kept on saying she was in pain and it hurts, it hurts, it hurts. She wants to urinate, she wants to urinate. And when she was on drips and painkillers, they gave her pain, I think it was, what do you call, the drips, is it morphine? And then when she started really getting agitated, I was told by the people who were there that she was taken in the back by some nurses. And when they went back to see her, they were told they were preparing to bring her home before all of this happened, and this started happening suddenly. This pain and this need to urinate suddenly, and when the nurses took her back and took her away from view, and when the sister went back to see her, she she was told that she was of course not going home and she was dying, and she had hours to live. Suddenly died. Then after that, see that 25? That's a sting on the shoulder. Afterwards, I learned that she might have had cancer of the uterus. Now, people get uterine cancer targets, especially when they're gerbil. Gerbling will cause uterine cancer. I constantly hear the comments outside the window that we are trying to put cancer into it by the informants who are terrorizing me. So if you're being gerbil, then you will get cancer. You will get all kinds of bleeding problems, women. You will get buildup in the lining of the uterus. You would get cramps. You would get burning sensations. Vaginitis is diagnosed. It's not really vaginitis. It's being hit with directed energy weapons between your legs. And when it penetrates your body, it inflames the body. Also, microwave, of course, causes growth, sometimes cancerous, sometimes benign. So being benign doesn't necessarily mean it's not dangerous. I have some growths on my skin that I've been looking after, so they're not growing anymore. So these things can happen. You're going to get uterine cancer when you're being remotely raped all the time. Now, we know that the agenda is being carried out in the workplace. The enslavement agenda is being carried out in the workplace. People at work are being partnered up with people at work who are logging it onto them. So this template is being in the workplace for a while now, because I've been logged into in the workplace and I've been hit between my legs in the workplace, and I ended up in the emergency with all the symptoms that I have demonstrated here several times: with arrhythmia, low blood pressure, all the symptoms of a heart attack, which probably I did get and was not diagnosed. I heard that the test came back with elevated levels. I was told outside the window, not by the doctor, that the there is a substance that's released in the blood when you have a heart attack, and that level was higher. I was tested, I think, 2 times, and the second time came back higher. This is what was discussed outside my window, with outside my window. Excuse me. So did I have a heart attack? I don't know. I had all the symptoms of one because I was being gerbiled at work. I was being hit at work. My eyes, my heart, my head, my shoulders, my back, my legs, just like I'm demonstrating right here. When the RF reading is over 500, excruciating pain could cause cramps in the chest, give you a heart attack right away, immediate, instant. The cousin, when she started visiting me, I would open the door. Well, I'll press the button here when she buzzes, and the door would not open. And a lot of when I eventually had to go down and get her myself, when I came up in the elevator, there were Chinese people around um, talking about not being able to come into the building. So there is a electronic override that closes the door. I'm suspecting because I kept pressing the button to open the door and she couldn't get in. No visitors. I keep hearing no visitors, no visitors. When anybody comes in to visit, they immediately start getting sick because the Chinese contractors want control. They want control of the experiment and they want control of the victim so they can sell to who they want, rather than when somebody else have control, they have to get meetings going and they have to collaborate and they have to share the slave, quote unquote. Well, this is exactly what's going on in the globe right now. The entire world is being enslaved. The entire world is being enslaved. Could you imagine how many people in Africa is going to die because everything is shut down? Could you imagine how many people in India who's going to die because the entire thing is shut down? Well, how many people are going to die of the virus? Well, 100,000. Well, you're going to have millions and millions of people going to be dying because they can't get food because everything is shut down. Which one is better? Dying of the coronavirus or dying of starvation? It doesn't make sense. We're being bamboozled. It's time we wake up and it's time we start talking and start sending emails. You don't have to be on the street to protest. You have this tool in your hands. It's called a cell phone. If 5 billion people say on emails that we do not want to listen to the World Health Organization, or 20 million people, or all the voters, 25 million people in Canada says, we don't want Justin Trudeau as prime minister anymore because he's bringing in a communistic system and undermining our democratic system, then he's out, he's gone. You don't need to be on the street to protest this. The protesters are online. You have the power in your hands, on your computer, on your cell phone. Start sending emails and start speaking up, because you're going to be chipped and you're going to be controlled, you're going to be tracked, you're going to be vaccinated like livestock, and you're going to be owned by people who are collaborating with the Chinese Communist Party, who is trying to tell them what to do. Because in the group of 13, on a global scale, they're fighting amongst themselves for power, for control. Just like at 25 Bamberg Circle, people compete for control in the seat, in the committee that they've got at 25 Bamberg Circle to take over Omar Rampersad, which includes the family, by the way. They're much in the same way that the people who are in the committee on a global basis are competing against each other for power, China being one of them. China wants to be the leader in this group of 12 or 13. It's the same template being used on a global basis. Wake up. Wake up. This is Omar Rampersad, 1:31 p.m., April 12, 2020.